Alabama's Lake Jordan is the scene for this week's Day on the Lake. Bassmaster Elite Pro Randy Howell thinks he's up to the task of figuring out its bass.
Yeah, when you first go out on a lake you hadn't been on, and one of the main things you got to remember is don't come out and try to fish slow baits that you're not going to be able to, cover a lot of water fast with. There's another bite. God, you missed it. Got him up there. That's a little one, I think, unless he's running at me. Man, he smoked that buzz bait. It almost looked like a largemouth, but it ain't no way a largemouth pulls like that. It's that size.
Randy's off to a good start, and it should be interesting today.
That was a buzz bait. Now that's another deal. Instead of fishing a slow drop shot or a Carolina rig, you're gonna try something fast like a buzz bait or jerk bait, some kind of bait that you can cover a lot of water with fast, and especially when you take advantage of this cloud cover this morning, try to get bites early and take advantage of that, because a lot of times in the fall you're not going to get a lot of bites throughout the day, so you need to capitalize on that early morning bite. Fish baits like a buzz bait or jerk bait, something that you can cover a lot of water fast with.
It's a challenge for any angler to catch fish on water they've never seen before. And when they fail, they think, well, they just weren't biting today, or maybe I'm not a good angler. I wonder how one of those bass pros would have done it. Well, what would happen if we took one of those big-time pros, put him on water he's unfamiliar with, gave him a day to figure it out, just like you and I have to do, and then we follow him on a day on the lake.
Day on the Lake is presented by Quantum Rods and Reels, fishing at a quantum level. By Progressive Boat Insurance. Visit progressive.com today.
Lake Jordan is located 30 minutes north of Montgomery, Alabama on the Coosa River. From dam to dam, a bass fisherman has about 12 miles to work with, and it's a very challenging piece of water, especially for someone who's never been on it. Well, that's the spot professional bass fisherman Randy Howell finds himself in as we join him about a half hour into the day.
There'll be a fish around that. That little cypress tree is pretty. Oh, there he was. Go. Oh, took it away from me. I let him come back and get it twice, and he didn't get it. Watch this. I got something for him.
Well, Randy's changed lures quickly and is back to the buzzbait that caught his first fish. And this lure's main feature is a blade that, when moved across the surface, causes plenty of noise and disturbance.
There he is. Boy, he busted that thing. That's a spot. That's a nice little fatty. Eat that old lunker lower, boy, eat it up. That ain't the one I missed, though. The one I missed was bigger than that, They're always bigger when the ones you miss.
Lake Jordan is noted for its spotted bass, which can be harder to figure out than a largemouth. So Randy Howell has his work cut out.
This little flat point right here, my boat's sitting out here in 8 and 10 feet, and where I'm casting that long cast up to, I can see the bottom up there in this clear water. It's probably a foot of water right there, and then I'm moving it out, and both of those bites have probably come in maybe 3 feet of water. And most of the time the spots in the fall on these lakes and reservoirs in the south are suspended, and they're roaming around. They're not sitting on anything, They just run up out of that deep water here, and they push bait across those flats and feed, and then they go right back out. And that's why you can cast, and all of a sudden cast, and one will move up there and get it. And you can even call them up. And that's why I like a loud buzz bait in the fall for spotted bass, because it'll call those fish up. If they're out here in 10 feet, they hear this real loud flat shad lunker lure, and they'll pull up there in 3 or 4 casts, and they might hit it. I've already made 100 casts this morning. I haven't even introduced myself. I'm Randy Howell from Springville, Alabama. We're on Lake Jordan today, and I'm going to try to make 1,000 casts by the end of the day, and we're going to figure out how to catch these bass. So I've already caught 2, so we're going to have a good day if we keep the clouds coming over today.
The rules here on Day on the Lake are pretty simple. As a matter of fact, if you read Bassmaster Magazine's Day on the Lake feature, well, you probably already know them, but here goes. You have 7 hours to put a fish-catching pattern together. And today, Randy Howell, we want to pick your brain as you do it. Everyone stick around. You have joined us for Day on the Lake, where we put an experienced bass fisherman in a place that, well, you've probably been before, on a new lake, doing what he does best, finding and catching bass. And hopefully by watching and by listening, the new lake won't be as puzzling to you next time. Randy Howell is the man of the hour today, and we just watched him catch his second fish of the day, so he's off to a good start. Our setting for this challenge is Central Alabama on a river system famous for its spotted bass. The Coosa River forms famous Lake Mitchell and then begins a 12-mile run below Mitchell called Lake Jordan. But let's take a look at this young Bassmaster Elite Pro's career, which is impressive enough to make you listen to his advice. Originally from North Carolina, Randy Howell has been fishing with the Bassmasters for more than 13 years. He's fished the Classic 7 times. Like so many of the great ones, he started out really young.
I grew up fishing my whole life, and I've definitely had it in my blood. My dad was a big fisherman, and he taught me a lot of what I know. And I started fishing tournaments when I was, 10, 11 years old, and guiding when I was 12 and 13 years old. And I just turned 34 2 weeks ago.
Our whole morning has been spent in Weoka Creek, where the water temperature is 78 degrees. Randy has targeted shallow water. Both catches have come on a buzzbait.
Well, I started out and caught those couple of fish on an island, and once you catch a fish on a little flat bar island, you kind of try to go find another little flat island that looks like that, and as you catch more fish doing the same thing, that's a pattern. You find a good pattern, and once you find a good pattern, you run with it, and then if the pattern quits, you run back to the same areas that you caught fish in before, and most of the time there's more fish in an area, you only catch 1 or 2, but then you go back and it may be another 1 or 2 there.
At 8:30, Randy begins to lose confidence in the buzzbait and switches to a Lucky Craft pointer. That's a jerkbait.
I love to catch them on a jerkbait. I wish I could get them biting it. I love to jerk, stop, and then you jerk and it's hung, and then it goes some spots. They're bad when they get that jerkbait. I don't know how big this one is. Well, he's not that big. He's foul hooked. I thought it was a big one for a minute. It's a good keeper, though. Did you see that? That rod just about went out of my hand. That was a jolt, man. On cast 250. We got our third keeper.
Now, when retrieved, the bill of a jerkbait pulls it down from 2 to 5 feet below the surface. When stopped, if it's a floating model, it floats back to the surface. If it's a suspending model, it holds its depth. Randy throws this on a Quantum Randy Howell Signature Series rod, imagine that, a 7-foot medium action rod, and the reel is a bait casting Quantum Tour Edition with 15-pound Berkeley fluorocarbon line.
It's a windy boat dock too, ought to have one. There he is. Oh, he was right where I thought. I got him snagged in the belly too. They're not hitting it real good, slapping at it. I love to catch them on that jerkbait. Darn. My lips broke off, look at that. That's the only one I got like that. Only one that color. Hopefully it doesn't matter. It matters that that's a $15 bait, though. I don't like to break a $15 bait. Look at that.
Well, while Randy changes lures, let's take a look at his path, which saw him launch at Mid-Lake, then spend the first 3 hours of the day in Weoka Creek. Fish number 1 came at 7:20 on cast number 22, and 5 casts later, number 2 hit a buzzbait. Bass number 3 jumped on a jerkbait at 9:30, and along came the 4th bass of the day 15 minutes later.
All right, let's get another one out. Thinking I might change to a smaller one because they're not eating that one real good. 78 looks good. 78, I'll try that one. He's down there laughing about me breaking my bait. There he is.
Randy Howell seems to be in the middle of a hot streak. His boat is in 8 to 10 feet of water, and he's throwing his jerkbait up in 5 feet of water around some brush. Probably found some crappie beds the residents had set out. Randy Howell has boated a limit of fish.
Small keeper anyway. That is a good little spot. Yeah, I went from the longer 3-hook 112 to the little 78 2-hook. Switched color a little bit too. The chartreuse shad, the other one was that pearl white. This is the one that my go-to bait. That's what I throw most of the time when I throw a jerk bait. This chartreuse shad 78 pointer. And there's another one. Oh, that's a good one there. Oh, that's a good one. That's what we're looking for right there, boy. He ate that thing too. That's a fat spot right there. Oh yeah, nice little spot. That's what it's all about. Look how he eat that. He liked that color and that size, didn't he? See that? Woo! I'm getting excited. That is a little fat one there. The belly on that thing. That's what you like. Might be something to this bait change. Smaller, both those fish had the bait in their mouth.
The biggest bass of the day so far, caught it on the jerk bait. In fact, Randy's been a 2-bait guy today. Had the buzz bait early, put it down, went with the jerk bait. Randy Howell's day has been outstanding so far. Now, can he keep up the pace this afternoon, especially if we lose this cloud cover? We'll be back to find out. You have joined us for Day on the Lake, where we put an experienced bass fisherman on a new lake to see just how he finds and catches bass. This week takes us to central Alabama on Lake Jordan, where Randy Howell has put together quite a productive day. Randy's success came earlier in the day via the buzzbait.
Most buzzbaits have, just a blade and they don't have a head to hit against. This particular buzzbait I like here, it's a flat shad lunker lure, and the blade hits it's an ABS plastic head. It hits that head and it causes that loud clacking sound. And to me, that sounds more like a big shad that flicks on top. And I think that's what draws that reaction strike out of it. And it's got a long shank hook, and then I put a bleeding bait trailer hook on the back of it to kind of help them get hold of it a little better, because they short strike a lot in open water. So it's definitely, just a crazy bait. Nobody's ever figured out why they bite a buzz bait, but as long as they bite it, it really doesn't matter why.
Then about mid-morning, the buzzbait bite went away. Randy switched to a jerk bait, which was getting about 3 or 4 feet below the surface.
Well, this jerk bait, cast it usually as far as you can cast it is the key also with a jerk bait, but you want to cover as much of a cast and get the bait down as deep as you can get it. And when I jerk the bait side to side, that jerk, and then that slack instantly popping back into the line there allows that bait to run side to side, almost like the walking the dog action of a top water Zara spook bait, except the action is doing it underneath the water. If you look at it in real clear water or in a swimming pool, you can see how to work a bait, and that's how you learn to make it dart side to side. And that's the key to making a lethargic fish that really is not feeding bite.
One noticeable thing about the morning was the lack of any long runs up and down the lake. The fish were found, for the most part, shallow and found very quickly. And Randy did make some moves, but they were not long moves, just short moves, looking for those shallow places that seemed to be just right. Then it was the same story with the jerkbait. With that, he covered plenty of water, but he did it without cranking the big engine. And all of this in the morning happening in Weoka Creek. Now, from noon till about 3 o'clock, things were pretty dead. With 1 hour left on the clock and 927 casts on the counter, we've moved down closer to the dam and set up on a deeper than usual point that's just off the main lake. The pointer jerkbait, that has been the go-to lure most of the day, and Randy's made his choice. He's going to stick with it.
There he is. Thought I had 2 for a minute. Look how bad them spots are. Little dude ain't even that big, he just thinks he is bad. That is a putter ball right there. Look at the belly on that thing. Woo! Coming on now, boys. We figured them out. They're on points with a jerkbait.
And to be more specific, this point is a little steeper than the ones in Weoka Creek. And Randy is working hard to get the bait down 5 or 6 feet below the surface. And a very, very important thing is that the lure suspends in the water. When the retrieve stops or it hesitates, the jerkbait dies in the water as opposed to floating back to the surface. If you look to buy this bait in the store, you would probably ask for a suspending jerkbait.
Afternoon delight bite. There he is. That's a big one. Holy cow, that's a big one. Come on, he's got me hung up in something. There he comes. There he comes. I got him. That's a nice one. A little bit foul hook, that's why he's a good one. He's a nice old piggy, old fatty. Ooh, that's a chunk. Look at that one. I love it.
Another really nice spotted bass, and from everything we've seen today, well, it sure looks like Randy Howell had a fantastic day on Lake Jordan. But when we come back, we'll sit Randy down and see what the man himself thought about his day on the lake.
Day on the Lake is presented by Quantum Rods and Reels, fishing at a quantum level. And by AT&T, your world delivered.
There he is. That's a big one. Ooh, that's a chunk. Look at that one. I love it.
Keys to Success is presented by Progressive Boat Insurance. Visit progressive.com today.
Today has been a pretty challenging day, as we kind of expected it would be today. We were blessed with a little bit of wind and a little bit of cloud cover, and that helped the bite, you know, sporadically come and go. Got him up there. You know, I ended up doing okay, and as far as a tournament day goes, you know, getting 9 or 10 bites on a tough fall conditions like this, I'll be happy with that any day. Probably ended up with 13 and change on a limit today. Never had a big bite, but found some areas today that if I had to come back tomorrow and fish another day or fish a tournament, I would hone in on these few little areas that we caught most of the fish, and I think it'd be a good chance of catching some more, maybe some bigger fish if I came back. But today we went through a lot of baits and a lot of rods, and that's the key to going somewhere new and learning a new lake. You got to be versatile, got to be open-minded, you got to fish a lot of baits and a lot of techniques until you start to figure out what's going on. There he is. Boy, he busted that thing. That's a spot. That's a nice little fatty. This morning we figured out pretty early that they were biting a buzzbait good, and then it ended pretty quick. And then I changed around and ended up getting them going on a pointer 78 and a pointer 112. And throughout the day, we picked up a few more fish. I don't know how big this one is. I thought it was a big one for a minute. It's a good keeper though. There he is. I got him snagged in the belly too. They're not hitting it real good. Once I figured out that the jerkbait bite was probably the thing I needed to be doing, we stuck with that most of the day. And even though we went through several hours that we didn't catch any fish, you still got to stick with that when you think that's what's going to be working, because trying to slow down and drag a Carolina rig or a drop shot or something like that, it's just going to waste a lot of your hours away pretty quick. So I like to stay moving and cover water and stay after the bait fish, and then I think you're going to catch a few fish scattered like that. If I was coming back tomorrow, I would fish the jerkbait probably most of the day. And wind being the key, finding the part of the lake where the wind has been blowing on the longest and pushing the bait fish up, that's the key to finding the fish right now. It seems like in the fall, they're always going to be following the bait fish. So when you go somewhere new, look for bait fish, be versatile, be open-minded, and cover a lot of water. And then when you figure out what they're on and the type of bait and the type of cover, go back over the same areas a couple times. After being here today, I've never fished it before. I've lived an hour and a half from here, and it's impressed me today, and I think I might come back and try it again one day when it's no pressure though. Love to catch them on jerk bait. I wish I could get them biting. I love to jerk, stop, and then you jerk and it's hung, and then it goes.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. To become a better angler, log on to ESPNOutdoors.com.